Welcome to the last video in this section on functions. It's been a whirlwind, learned a lot, hopefully did a couple of exercises. If not, we have a ton coming up. The next section is all exercises, a bunch of practice, hopefully. But the last thing we're going to talk about here, before we do a recap, is how we document our functions. And Python comes with a very special way of adding documentation, of adding little messages to each function that explain what they do. And it looks like this. We use triple double quotes. So 3 double quotes and then a message and then 3 double quotes. And it's always the first line of a function. And you don't have to do it for every single function ever. We won't do it for most things. But if we do any complex projects, when we do complex projects, it will be nice to be able to document what each function does. So first line of the function, triple double quotes. This one we say a simple function that returns a string hello. And this is not just a little comment feature, but you can actually access it by referring to the function and then using the dot double underscore doc double underscore. And that's a property generated automatically by this. That will then retrieve whatever we put inside those triple double quotes. So for example, print. We've been using print all the time. If we do print dot double underscore doc double underscore, we get a little message that says, print the values to a stream. There's a bunch of stuff here. Add to a new line at the end, that sort of thing. Or let's look at random.randint, which you have to import. So that's import random. And if we do dot doc, return random integer in range, including both endpoints. And lastly, let's just make a list dot pop dot doc. And it says, removes and return item at index defaults to last. Raises index error if list is empty or index is out of range. So this all just goes to show that all the built-in functions have this, and we can define our own when we define a function. So in our exponent function, triple double quotes, just like this, first line of the function. So we could just say something like this. Exponent num power raises num to specified power, power defaults to 2. Just like a little note that explains how this works. And by default, nothing will happen, but maybe at the end we'll do a print exponent dot double underscore, and we want doc double underscore. And now if I try running Python 3 exponent, we get the same values, but then at the end, it just prints to me that docstring. Okay, so that's all there is to that. It doesn't have any other functionality. That's it. So lastly, let's recap all the ground we've covered. There's a lot we've learned. So we've seen that functions are just procedures for executing code to a couple of lines or more, maybe 100 more lines, although that's not a good idea to have them that long, but a bunch of code with a name. Sometimes they take inputs and often they have outputs. They spit something out at the end using the return keyword. To create inputs, we make parameters, which can have default values. We call those default parameters. We assign those with an equal sign. Variables defined inside of functions are scoped to that function. So remember that. Scope is a thing that was kind of a painful video probably, but we talked about how when you have a function, if you define a variable inside it, it exists only inside that function and not afterwards, not beforehand, only in that function. When invoking a function, we can pass in keyword arguments in any order where we use the equal sign. It's different than default parameters because it's inside of the function invocation. Is that a thing? Invocation. When we execute the function. We'll see this a lot more later when we talk about dictionaries and unpacking them. Finally, be careful not to return too early in your conditional logic and refactor when you can to remove unnecessary conditional logic. Make sure you don't return in a loop as well. So remember in that video, I showed 2 common mistakes that are made when using return statements. Oh boy, yeah, that's a lot. We learned a lot in this section. And hopefully you enjoyed some of the smaller exercises I sprinkled in throughout the last section. But after this, immediately following this video, is a section of 10 or more, might be more like 15 exercises, all in the browser with a bunch of tests written that all will challenge your skills at writing functions. And they should be arranged in difficulty from easiest to hardest, but that is slightly subjective. So I'd start at the beginning. You don't have to do all of them. You don't have to do any of them, but I recommend you attempt to do them because it's good practice and it took a long time to make them. So enjoy that, hopefully. And then afterwards, we're going to talk more about functions, some of the more advanced topics around them. See you in a bit.